And jump right into chapter 8. We've already covered everything in chapter 7 in previous chapters. Over the break, and my break actually kind of starts next week because I don't have to prepare a lecture for the next week. So that's going to give me 2 weeks to catch up with this stuff. It kind of caught me off guard. I have two classes that I have to put together. So um, I'll try to get everything straightened out for the end of the semester. So let's go ahead and get started with this lecture. Today we're tackling middle childhood. We've been talking about toddlerhood. So until preschool and kindergarten. Now we're going to talk about actually going to school. Uh, Chapter 8, middle childhood. Height and weight, growth in height and weight during middle childhood slows considerably. African American boys and girls tend to grow faster than white children. The body's failure to produce enough growth hormone leads to a growth deficiency. Growth deficiency in this case is a stature below 5 feet tall. Girls and boys remain the same size for most of the middle childhood, but girls will begin their prepubertal growth spurt 2 years before boys about age 9. It will take boys until their adolescence to catch up with the girls of the same age. It makes for some strange dancing at preteen dances, as we can see. Acceptance by peers at this age is often predicated on external appearance and physical competence. Both boys and girls often use advanced maturity as a criteria for selecting friends and leaders. My grandson is playing basketball. He's about just a little under 5 feet tall. They were playing on Friday or Thursday against a team that had one kid that was 6'5" and another kid that was 6'4". So mature wise, some kids mature late, some kids mature early, and in this case, those two individuals were quite tall. Greater muscle development as a child ages leads to more and more physical activity. Children will develop bilateral coordination, strength, flexibility, impulsion, speed, precision, balance, and rhythm. Good sport at this time is soccer. Most children at this age try different sports. Most sports give the child an opportunity to develop specific sports skills and life skills that can be applied to everyday life. Sports helps the child develop competence, character, connection, and caring. As an example, this is a rugby team actually. Those are rugby balls. Um, my grandson played two basketball games, three basketball. He had three basketball games last week and two soccer games. So indoor soccer games, of course. Um, Children need an average of about 2,400 calories every day. Breakfast should supply about 25% of the child's total daily calories. Nutritionists recommend plenty of grains, fruits, and vegetables, which are high in natural nutrients. U.S. children tend to eat too much fat, sugar, and low nutrient foods. 17% of school age children are considered obese. Results in research studies have shown that better nourished children are more energetic, less anxious, show more positive emotion, score higher than malnourished children score on a wide range of cognitive measures in middle childhood. Rates of asthma, a chronic illness of the lungs characterized by wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath, are highest in middle childhood. Children who are at the highest risk of developing asthma are boys, had low birth weight, have parents who smoke, are poor, and obese. Asthma may be higher in developed countries because of home interiors and extreme cleanliness. However, in developing countries, air pollution may be the biggest contributor. African American children are at a greater risk than other children in the United States for developing asthma, but their parents seem to be the most responsive in creating an environment that avoids asthma triggers. Maintaining a health and fitness. Exercise promotes health and fitness. Participation in a variety of competitive and recreational sports, for example, tennis, bowling, leads to a lifetime fitness regimen. 15% of boys and 26% of girls do not exercise 3 times a week or they breathe hard or sweat. And this is really kind of interesting because I go to the gym twice a week and lift weights. And it's strange that I'm the only one sweating. I'm not exactly sure why nobody wants to sweat. But I actually have to carry a towel around because I sweat so much, and other individuals are sitting there and they'll do a lift and then they'll sit there and they'll play on their phone and sit on the equipment and play on their phone and who knows what they're doing, probably looking at TikTok or something or Instagram. Anyway, it's nobody sweats anymore. And I never see anybody outside. My wife and I are the only people I ever see outside. Vision and hearing problems. Most children in middle childhood have keener vision than when they were younger. Almost 13% of children under 18 can't see at all or have impaired vision. About 15% of 6 to 19-year-olds, mostly boys, have some hearing loss. There's a sharp increase in the incidence of myopia in middle childhood. This is, of course, nearsightedness. Children, especially in developing countries, tend to have increasing eyesight problems due to poor lighting and an increase in the need to read and write. 2 factors leading to poor eyesight are in today's culture, are genetic predisposition for eyesight problems, increased use of phones and computers where they are bent over and looking at their phones, watching movies on a telephone screen. 25% of children need glasses. 1 in 10 children at this age range suffers from serious emotional disturbances. 13% suffer from anxiety disorders. 2% suffer from severe depression. 5% suffer from ADHD. 1 to 4% suffer from conduct disorders. 0.5% will suffer from schizophrenia. Oppositional defiant disorder, or also known as ODD, is a pattern of behavior where a child is uncooperative and hostile toward authority figures. For ODD to be diagnosed, the behavior must interfere with the child's daily life. 15% of school-age children struggle with ODD, but most grow out of it before they are diagnosed with more severe conduct disorder. ODD is often comorbid with ADHD, learning disabilities, anxiety disorder, or mood disorders. When I was living in Oklahoma, I got a job as a middle school teacher. And sadly, the school was the school for behavioral problems. So it was kind of an interesting place, dealing with all these children that you're hoping will grow out of their ODD and not develop conduct disorder. You're dealing with a lot of children with ADHD. It was really kind of interesting. You would have thought we would have had numerous school counselors, but we only had one. And she hid in our office all the time. It was really kind of odd. We never saw her in the hallways. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some children are perpetually restless, fidgety, and impulsive. They have a hard time controlling their actions and behavior. 3 to 5% of school-age children are diagnosed with ADHD, and the symptoms are overactivity, unable to keep still, unusually energetic, inattention, do not pay attention, and seem to be unable to concentrate on schoolwork, and impulsivity. They seem to act before thinking. About half of the children suffering from ADHD will carry it into adulthood. More children are diagnosed with ADHD than in the past. Many researchers feel that this is not due to misdiagnosis, but because of improved diagnostic techniques. Doctors are picking up children that were missed before, especially girls who were often excluded because of their gender. ADHD is treatable. While drug therapy has been shown to work on most ADHD cases, counselors have shown that concentrated family intervention techniques such as multimodal treatment study for children with ADHD has proven effective. And here are some strategies. Oh, I guess that doesn't really fit, does it? Oh, I need to fix that. Wait a minute. I'll fix it right now. Maybe. Well, maybe not. Wait a minute. There we go. All right, let's do this again. There we go. Parenting strategies for children with ADHD provide positive attention, give effective instructions, praise your child's efforts, establish rewards, use consistent consequences. The concrete operational stage runs from ages 7 to 11 and usually introduces the child to more complex mental operations that will initiate the child into the world of academia. Cognitive advances and understanding a spatial relationship better. They understand seriation, which means a child can arrange objects in a series based on one or more dimensions, such as weight, lightest or heaviest, or color. They understand the principle of identity, which is part of conservation, reversibility, classification, understanding to reverse classifications. Subtraction becomes possible because they understand reversibility. Horizontal decollage, they master ideas of conservation of different items at different ages, volumes of liquid, solid measures, and numbers. They understand the process of and the classification of liquids, measures, and numbers. Children in middle childhood become better at dealing with organization. They understand that there is a difference between a whole and the sum of its parts. This is known as class inclusion. The individual also understands seriation, or the ability to scale objects according to a dimension. Some cognitive skills make their first real appearance during middle childhood. One skill is conservation, a realization that certain properties of an object necessarily remain constant despite changes in the object's appearance. And this is Piaget's conservation task. Here we have two containers that have exactly the same liquid. Once they pour it into the tall, slender tube, the child needs to understand that this is exactly the same amount as that. Piaget found that after about age 7, most children did indeed conserve quantity in the water glass experiment. That's what we just saw. That's the water glass experiment. He found that by a year or two later, children conserved on a lot of other tasks as well. Each task requires believing in some form of invariance despite perceptual change. And of course, we're talking about money, rearranging the money, liquids. This is a solid, one is flat, the other is round, and area. Piaget's ideas and approach have significantly influenced educators, particularly those in early childhood education. At the heart of this influence is Piaget's constructivist philosophy, the assumption that children develop their own concepts through active engagement with the environment. At the heart is Piaget's emphasis on stages of cognition. These two ideas have jointly influenced teaching methods, curriculum content, and methods for assessing child progress. Educators have borrowed have borrowed Piaget's idea that true knowledge originates from active manipulation of materials. Children learn about weights by actually weighing various objects on a scale rather than by reading about weights in a book or hearing their teacher talk about them. A commitment to active learning, in turn, encourages teachers and curriculum planners to put more tangible activities into educational programs wherever possible, as well as to sequence activities from the tangible to the abstract. Reading about insects still has a place in learning about entomology, but first students need to be aware of what they look like, and this, of course, is a grasshopper. Efficiency of mental operations is based on an individual's ability to encode, store, and retrieve information. One question is how much information children can handle at a given time. How quickly and accurately can they process the information? Meta-memory is understanding the process of memory. Information is gathered from our senses and our sensory register and filtered to determine which information the individual is going to allow into their thought processes. Most of our thought takes place in our working memory. The working memory can only hold a limited number of items for a limited period of time. Learning information must take place in a form of permanent storage, the long-term memory. When children first start school, they have to develop the ability to tune out distracting stimulation and focus on a particular task. This is known as selective attention. A second grader may have trouble concentrating on a task if there is music playing, but by the sixth grade, the child won't be bothered by the music. When a child starts school, they begin organizing their recurring processes in their memories as scripts that they can repeat when needed. Toothbrushing script, buttoning clothes script, zipping up clothes script, tying shoes script, sitting quietly when at school script, doing math at math time script. Most people think that they live in Lake Wobegon, where all women are strong, all the men are good looking, and the children are above average. At least that is how parents think of their children. That is why intelligence tests are tolerated in the United States, because they want to find out how smart their beautiful children are. The significant rise in IQ scores during the 20th century is known as the Flynn effect. And this is, what's his first name? James Flynn. This is James Flynn right here. In 1999, James Flynn recognized that the median IQ score had increased from 1932 till 1997 by as much as 20 points. The rise is thought to be from environmental causes such as better prenatal care, smaller families with fewer children competing for resources, attending preschool, and even watching educational children's programs. But the most likely and influential reason for the rise in IQ scores is the decline of infectious diseases, which drains the body of energy that is needed for the physical and cognitive growth. The field of writing psychological measures is known as psychometrics, and the people who specialize in developing psychological tests are called psychometricians. Psychometricians from the past have developed tests for studying many areas of psychology, but the most controversial tests have been the tests that measure intelligence. In 1983, Howard Gardner of Harvard University began expanding our understanding of intelligence. Gardner felt that intelligence came in many forms. Linguistic intelligence, knowing the meaning of words, having the ability to use words to understand new ideas, and using language to convey ideas to others. Logical mathematical intelligence, understanding relations that exist among objects, actions, and ideas, as well as the logical mathematical operations that can be performed on them. Spatial intelligence, perceiving objects accurately and imaging it in the mind's eye, the appearance of an object before and after it has been transformed. Musical intelligence, comprehending and producing sounds varying in pitch, rhythm, and emotional tone. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence, using one's body in highly differentiated ways, as dancers, craftspeople, and athletes do. Interpersonal intelligence, identifying different feelings, moods, motivations, and intentions in others. Intrapersonal intelligence, understanding one's emotions and knowing one's strengths and weaknesses. In 1999, Gardner added naturalistic intelligence, recognizing and distinguishing among members of a group, such as species, and describing relations between such groups. There are horticultural, naturalistic geniuses, and animal geniuses. They sometimes call them whisperers. Gardner's latest addition to his intelligences was existential intelligence in 2002, considering ultimate issues such as the purpose of life and the nature of death. Gardner based much of his theorizing on the research being done with savants, individuals with mental deficits who showed extreme intelligence in one or more domains. And I'm going to show you one right now, maybe. Just looked at this. There we go.
Qatar Airways, taking you on a journey with Quest.
The Public Library in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's often said that the mind works in mysterious ways. In the case of 55-year-old Kim Peek, this is truer than most. He's the world's most famous savant, a confounding mix of mental disability and brilliance.
My zip code, where I used to live, was 10003. Where is that apartment?
Lower East Side. Lower East Side.
My office is at 30303. Where is that?
Atlanta.
Kim's remarkable brain became the real-life inspiration for the character of Raymond Babbitt in the movie Rain Man.
Sally Gibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
How did you know my phone number?
How'd you know that? Said read the telephone book last night. Gibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
It's a role that earned Dustin Hoffman an Oscar and brought worldwide attention to the phenomenon of the so-called idiot savant.
Dustin walked up to Kim after he'd spent about 6 hours with us in Hollywood, and he touched noses with him, and he says, "Kim, I may be the star, but you're the heavens."
I was born on March the 9th, 1962.
Was a Friday.
Kim was born with severe brain damage, but with his disability came an astonishing gift, a photographic memory. Like other savants, the mechanism of his condition is poorly understood.
Kim's brain, no left brain, no right brain. He has one hemisphere, doesn't have any separation, and total absence to the corpus callosum, which has to be a filtering system, and he has no filtering system. So instead of 45% to 50% that yours and my brain keeps, he keeps in about 98%.
Against all the odds, Kim Peek learned to read. Books and the unquenchable thirst for knowledge came to dominate his world.
Last president of the Soviet Union was who?
Gorbachev.
Longest serving leader of the Soviet Union?
Stalin.
Oh, this is hard. Identify the famous son of Pepin the Short.
Karloman.
The City Library is Kim Peek's second home, and for good reason. He's already read about 9,000 books. Luckily, the library has 600,000, so it should keep him busy for some time to come.
All right. Let's try Derek.
When I started drinking warm water to help with my memory, my friends laughed at me. But when they saw how much I'd improved, they started.
When Derek Paravicini is playing the piano, it's hard to believe there's anything he can't do. And yet, when you meet him away from the keyboard, as we first did in London 6 years ago, the contrast is shocking.
Can you hold up 3 fingers for me?
I can do that.
Can you hold up 3?
I don't know how to do it.
You want me to show you 3?
Yes, please,
Okay.
yes.
Derek is a musical savant, blessed with an island of extreme talent in a sea of profound disability. Derek was excited to show us the skills that make him so exceptional. His ability to instantly call up any piece of music he has ever heard, like YMCA.
Can you play that one?
Can play YMCA.
And I asked him to play a show tune. But it isn't just that Derek remembers them. He can transform them effortlessly and seamlessly into the styles of different musicians, like jazz greats.
Switch to Oscar Peterson. How's about Dave Brubeck?
It's like he's got libraries of pieces and styles in his head.
Adam Ockelford is Derek's teacher.
He can just whip out a piece book and a style book and just bring them together and it just kind of explodes.
Wow, okay. Children will have a fairly extensive vocabulary by the time they begin school. School will allow them to use language to analyze, study, and understand language, and this is known as metalinguistic awareness. Children will begin using figurative language forms as they delve deeper and deeper into academics. They will understand similes, such as sly as a fox. They'll understand proverbs. Sleeping foxes catch no hens. They'll understand idioms, crazy like a fox, and metaphors, he's a fox, meaning that he's sly. Some elementary schools offer a second language which includes proper grammar as well as vocabulary, and this is known as school bilingualism. Children usually learn to read when they enter school at age 6 or 7. Reading requires direct instructions and the ability to learn symbols and understand meanings. The two main approaches to reading are phonics and whole language. The phonics approach advocates teaching children to read by breaking down wording into their sound components and then putting them together into words. For the whole language approach, the emphasis should be on the meaning of written language in whole passages, so that children can guess at the meaning of words based on the context. We used both when I was in school, but the interesting thing is phonics isn't all that old. They started using phonics in the early 1950s, but they didn't teach it at the school where I went to school until my year, actually. And at that point, my sister was a year older than me, or she was a year ahead of me, and they didn't teach them phonics. And she couldn't read. My sister couldn't read until she was in the 3rd grade. I learned to read in the 1st grade, but she didn't learn to read until she was in the 3rd grade, because in the 3rd grade they started teaching phonics and she was able to read. And to this day, she doesn't like to read. She won't read. I have an older brother that had a similar problem, but he learned to read and he enjoys reading. But my sister won't read anything. You can't, and handwriting is just atrocious. The approach that works best appears to be a combination of the two approaches, phonics and whole word approach, beginning with phonics and later supplementing with the whole language approach. And of course, if you're pronouncing a new word, you'll use phonics, and then after that, you try to use proverb, like Proverbs. You know, I was misreading it. I was mislooking at it. Similes, proverbs, idioms, and metaphors. I was misidentifying proverbs, and I tried to pronounce it incorrectly. Most children become able readers by the 3rd grade, but some suffer from conditions such as dyslexia, which includes difficulty sounding out letters, difficulty learning to spell words, and a tendency to misperceive the order of letters in words. Other children have difficulty reading due to the range of learning disabilities, which are cognitive disorders that impede the development of learning a specific skill, such as reading or math. Some research suggests that difficulty in visual recognition might be caused by dyslexia rather than being a cause of dyslexia, suggesting that the breakdown occurs with the phonological coding. Other researchers have found differences in brain structures, such as the corpus callosum, and they talked about the corpus callosum before. That is the connection between the two hemispheres of the brain. This is the corpus callosum. And others have found that the thalamus may be causing dyslexia, and the thalamus is this big egg in the middle of your brain. There are relatively high rates of learning disabilities among children with a close family member, such as a parent or twin, with learning disabilities, which suggests some kind of genetic basis which is supported by genetic research. And according to my mother, my dad had dyslexia when he was younger, and he also had atrocious handwriting. And he didn't read very much, but and that may be why my brother and my sister both had a problem reading when they first started school. Current thought suggests that a combination of genetics and environment likely plays a causal role in the development of learning disabilities. And I have a problem with causal. You can see causal here. If you put the U on the other side of the S, it's casual. So sometimes when I'm looking at it and I'm just flashing across it, I will see causal rather than casual, or casual rather than causal. Next to the family, school probably is the single most important influence during middle childhood. Each year, children spend about 1,100 hours at school and often many additional hours in school-related activities. Experiences at school give children opportunities to develop cognitive skills, language, and various talents and abilities. School also provides an arena for social development, for developing self-image and self-esteem, cultivating peer relationships, and learning to deal with the diversity and conflicts that are an inevitable part of life. Traditional classrooms provide particular patterns and styles of discourse or language interaction that influence how, when, and with whom children can speak. Recurring patterns of classroom interaction are sometimes called participation structures and probably seem familiar if you have attended school for many years. I wonder why I don't have the ED on the end there. Let's go ahead and put that in there. There you go. Okay. Sorry. They correspond roughly to common teaching strategies, except that participation structures include not only the teacher's behavior, but students as well. Teacher's discourse is always heavily laced with control talk, patterns of speech that collectively remind students that the teacher has power over their behavior and verbal comments. Even during indirect participation structures, such as discussion or group work, teachers regularly do all of the following, among other things, to remind students of the teacher's influence. Designate speakers by calling on one student rather than another. Declare when a comment is relative or is valuable or irrelevant by saying that's a good idea, or how can you relate your comment to what we were just talking about. Changing the topic or activity by saying now let's do X instead of Y. Observations of classroom teaching show that both teachers and students may respond differently to a student on the basis of gender, race, or ethnic background in ways that parallel gender, racial, and ethnic biases in society at large. Teachers are more likely to speak to boys from a physical distance and to speak to girls at close range, such as arm's length. Teachers tend to call on boys 10% to 30% more often than girls, depending on the subject and grade level. Both behaviors create an impression in the minds of students that boys are somehow more important than girls. Other studies have demonstrated that children, particularly boys, perceive that teachers treat boys more harshly than girls. And that is the end. Let me see. Yeah, that's the end. Let's see. Okay, there we are. Okay. I'll see you next week.